Wesson M&P. This is a 9mm. The tricky part about this gun is it has a magazine safety. So you're going to have to use a magazine in the process of taking it apart in order to let the hammer fall. First thing we do with any gun, we unload it. Remove the source of ammunition. Lock the slide to the rear. Inspect the chamber. Inspect the magazine well. Double check it. Make sure the gun is completely empty. Next, we're going to strip all the rounds out of our gun to ensure that we have a completely empty magazine for this process because we have to use it. So, we rotate the takedown lever 90 degrees down, release the slide stop, insert a magazine, press the trigger, remove the magazine, and the slide will now come free of the gun. Reach inside, this one's a little bit tight, take out the spring and guide rod. And then remove the barrel. So this is about as far down as we want to break the gun. So because I'm working with solvents, I'm going to go ahead and put on some glasses to keep that stuff out of my eyes and some rubber gloves to keep me from absorbing as much of that as I can through my skin. Take a little WD-40, spray the slide down, hit these rails. Anywhere else where it might look like there's any little bit of carbon or anything built up. Spray the barrel down, especially right here on the feed ramp. Just get a little bit on there. And I'm not going to use a whole lot of WD-40 in here. I'm going to hit the feed ramp, a little bit of metal parts. But I'm not going to intentionally douse this polymer frame with any type of a solvent. WD-40, from my experience, hasn't tended to make an impact on it, but why risk it? Solvent and plastic, generally a bad idea. Now I'm going to take my all-purpose brush and just kind of scrub everything out of there. Especially in here around any square or angled parts. That piece of the chamber that matches up to the feed ramp, your barrel locking lugs, and why not scrub the barrel a little bit as long as you're here. Same thing on the slide. Just going to take and scrub out any dirt. Anything that looks dirty is probably dirt. Especially in there around the extractor. I'm just going to test this with the back of the all-purpose brush. I can hear it moving, it springs, I can feel the tension. It must be good. If I've got something jammed up in the extractor, I can reach in there and scrape that out with a scribe or anything else. Once I've done that, I'm just going to take my dry rag and wipe all the excess WD-40 or whatever solvent I used off of the gun. WD-40 makes a great solvent. It's a horrible lubricant. If you put WD-40 on your gun and you do not put lubricant and preservative on there, you will have sucked every ounce of moisture out of that metal and this thing will begin to rust the minute you put it into the safe. So, great solvent, horrible lubricant. The spring and guide rod, I just spin this around and wipe it with the dry rag until I've gone through a complete cycle of the coils and taken any visible dirt out of there. That's a stainless steel piece and spring steel. It's not going to be affected. It doesn't require a whole lot of lubrication or anything else to keep it intact. Wipe everything down, same thing here. If I did get any on the polymer frame, I'm going to make sure that I wipe that off. And generally I just take the cloth, run it up the magazine well, so that I get any excess dirt or anything out of there. Just pull it up till it gets tight, pull it back down. Pretty simple. Now, if I've got any leftover solvent, spray right off with the air. Get that out. Same thing on the slide. I just want to get any leftover solvent out of the gun. Nothing to worry about on the barrel. Maybe if I've got some dirt in the spring, I'd hit that with this. Right now that gun is clean. So now we're going to punch the chamber. This one is a 9mm chamber brush. So I just take that and run it a couple of times back and forth through the barrel to loosen up any carbon or anything else that we have in there. And then I'm going to run a patch through the barrel. I just run that halfway through, wipe it around on the interior until I get all the carbon, dirt, whatever else was in there, and any leftover solvent should come out with it. Then I'm going to take a clean patch, coat that with a little bit of CLP, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just wipe that around on the interior of the barrel so that I coat that down with the preservative. A little lubrication. I'm not worried that this thing comes out perfectly spotless. Gray color of any sort is fine by me. And then I'm going to take and lubricate the working parts of this gun. So I'm going to take a little bit of FP10 and a Q-tip. And run it down anywhere where there might be any type of metal on metal. I'm going to start with the slide rails. Then I'm just going to dab this on anywhere in here where you're going to have metal to metal contact. And the older your gun gets, you're going to know, because this bluing starts to get whiter and whiter and whiter and look more like stainless steel, which is what the slide is usually made out of. On the frame of these guns, most of the metal parts are already stainless, with the exception of these barrel lugs in particular, but you can see the wear marks starting to form. So I'm just going to hit those with a drop of FP10. If I need a little more, I'll put some more drops on. I'm going to make sure I get the feed ramp. These forward slide lugs, dab off any excess. Now I'm going to worry about preserving it. So I'm going to take my wet rag, spray a little bit of CLP in there, more than I think I need, and I'm just going to take the metal parts and rub them around on the outside and the interior of the gun to make sure that we get all of these portions a nice dense coat of preservative on it. I'm not worried about the gun being wet at this point, because I'm going to take it and wipe the excess off here in a minute. Right now I just want to get a whole bunch of it on there. Now, these areas up here, I'm only worried about the top half. I'm not going to waste lubricant or time lubricating a polymer frame. That's one of the upsides of a polymer frame, is there's really nothing you need to do to these. And then I'll take the spring, grab that in that kind of wet area, and just twist it through until I've done a complete cycle on the spring. So reassemble the gun. I'm just going to put the barrel back in place, take the little nub on the front end of the spring, maintaining control of it, making sure that it pushes through the front. Just going to put a little bit of tension on the spring and drop it into place. So it sits, popped off of there, there we go, right there. Line up the slide lugs. I get it most of the way there, push this back until I can reach that. And now that I'm done, I'm going to take my gloves off so I can manipulate this gun a little bit easier. So I'm going to going to take my dry rag and wipe off any excess lubrication on the outside of the gun. Not too worried about excess lubrication on the inside, but it doesn't hurt to wipe it down. You get a little bit of smoke the first time you fire. So now I need to function check this gun. In order to do so, first thing I'm going to test is the magazine disconnect. There's no magazine in there, the gun is cocked, the gun should not fire. I'm going to insert a magazine, and the gun should fire. Cycle the slide, release the slide stop, the gun should reset,